'cause I know that you've called me. I know that you've called me. I've lost myself for good within your promise. And I won't hide it. I won't hide it. Jesus, I believe in you, and I would go to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth for you. Alone I'm the Son of God, and all the world will see that you are God. You are God. Jesus, I believe in you, and I will go to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth for you. Alone I'm the Son of God, and all the world will see that you are God. You are Hey, and I would give the world to tell your story, 'cause I know that you've called me. I know that you've called me. I've lost myself for good within your promise, and I won't hide it. I won't hide it. And I would give the world to tell your story, 'cause I know that you called me. I know that you called me. I've lost myself for good within your promise, and I won't hide it. I won't hide it. Jesus, I believe in you, and I would go to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth for you. Alone I'm the Son of God, and all the world will see that you are God. You are God. Jesus, I believe in you, and I would go to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth for you. Alone I'm the Son of God, and all the world will see that you, yes, you are God. Oh, you are God. Jesus, I believe in you, and I would go to the ends of the earth. Oh, to the ends of the earth for you. Alone I'm the Son of God, and all the world will see that you are God. You are God. Yes, you are God. 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 Oh, all the world will see you are
The reason that God is loving you so that you can introduce Him to your world. Pakisabi naman sa katabi mo, inaayos tayo ng Diyos.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Pastor Tani Planas.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Wherever you are, you may be in your house, in your car, or wherever you may be. Alam mo, let's just have a blessed time together. Happy Sunday po sa inyong lahat, no? Binabati ko po ang lahat ng mga pamilya, lahat ng mga yung mga tao na sumama sa amin ngayon. I pray that you'll just be ready to just receive a word of encouragement, direction, even rebuke, no? Kasi um, it's so important nowadays na alam natin yung ating kapaligiran, that we know our world, what's happening in our world, but at the same time, no, it can be overwhelming. Overwhelming, bakit? Because there's so many problems around us. It's multiple things happening at the same time. You have the troubles of our times. You also have, alam mo, your personal problems, the things that you fear, and then what's happening in society, yung mga we know that here we are again. Yung bang election season is slowly creeping up on us, but it's just a host of all things, and we can be sometimes confused and overwhelmed. But in facing our world, I pray that we will see this morning that the Lord is actually speaking to us, no, in our times. He is working on your life. He is constantly communicating with you. Of course, in your heart, with your thoughts. He's also communicating with you through what you see, to the world that you have. Why? Because Jesus enters our world. He's not afraid of our world. Hindi siya nadidiri sa mundo natin para hindi pumasok. He's not, he wants to be with us in all of our experiences, in all that we feel. But here's the question, it can get confusing. What is wrong with our world? In sometimes we get so tired, we're looking for a solution for everything. Not only ourselves. What can we do to make things better? What can we do in our house to make things better? And then we look inside, and what's wrong with me? No, what's wrong with me? I hope that this morning, as we go into the Word of God, we will have some clarity in all this, so that we do not waste our effort, so that we do not waste even our emotions, so that we do not waste time feeling bad about this, feeling bad about that. Because many of us are irritable, many of us have shrunk back na nga. We don't want to interact with our world anymore because we just feel so helpless. And right now, we're asking the question, what is wrong with our world? In Matthew chapter 9, verse 35, this is what it says. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. So he was on the ground. Jesus was right there in the grassroots, feeling the pulse of the people, aware of their difficulties, experiencing this messy world that we have. He's right there. And what was he doing? He was healing the sick. Remember, he was healing the sick. He was praying for them. He was talking to people. And he was aware of what pains us all. And then it says in verse 36, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. In the other translations, I love it when they said, his heart broke. It says here, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Remember, he was healing the sick. There were people the lame was walking, the blind was seeing. Their illnesses were being miraculously healed. And you would think that he was meeting the needs of everyone. Okay na sana kasi nandoon na siya. But why did he feel bad? Even though they were getting healed, even though they were experiencing His love, why was he feeling bad? What? Still, his heart was broken. It says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And then he continues on in verse 37. He says, then he said to the disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, send out workers into his harvest. He was seeing everyone that had a problem. He was healing the sick, meeting their needs. But he goes, looks up at the disciples and say, can't you see? There's so many of them, and there's so few of us. There's so many of them, and there's so few of us. He said, he was saying, if you are going to pray, pray for this. That there may be many more who can go out and love these people. This verse is telling us what the problem is. We can be so hurt, so offended by our world today. How? We look at the discrimination, no? The discrimination that's happening all around us, rich and poor. The discriminations of our sexual orientations. We can also be so offended by the government and all our perceived yung bang offenses that they have made against us, the negligence, what they did and what they did not do, what they should have done. We may look at Facebook today and we may say, how can people do this? Bakit ganito magsulat ito? Parang laging may mga pinatatamaan. Tapos may magpo-post, ibabash naman. And then sometimes our world can be so toxic, and then here we are, we're saying, what's wrong with our world? And Jesus was showing us in this verse, this is what's really wrong. It's not about the rich or the poor. It's not about the powerful and the helpless. It's not about the sick and the healthy. It's not about the normal and the abnormal. It's not about this. He said, at the core of everything, at the core of the heart of the rich and the poor, in the core of the heart of the healthy and the unhealthy, at the core of the heart of every COVID victim, of the families that are suffering, at the heart of every person, your neighbor, your husband, your wife, your child. At the heart of this, Jesus looks up. And then like he said in verse 36, he said, when he saw the crowds, the sea of humanity, he had compassion on them. His heart was moved. His heart broke at the great need. And what is the need? Here's the problem. Everyone is harassed. Everyone is helpless. Everyone is like sheep without a shepherd. First thing I want to say, we all see the troubles of our world, but do we see what Jesus sees? A long time ago, when I had a car, that wasn't very good, and it was breaking down, and I didn't have much money to maintain that car, but I was using it because, I had to go for places. The air conditioning wasn't very good, so what did I do? I went and placed a fan inside the car. Why? Because the the air conditioning wasn't enough to cool it down, so I put a fan. And it was okay for a time, but after a few weeks, you realize it's not enough. I put a fan as a solution, but that really wasn't the problem. Problem was the compressor of the air conditioning was bad. Problem was that the system of my car was the air conditioning system was getting old, and there were leaks, inefficiencies. And my solution was to put a fan. But was that, and it was okay for a time, but the problem is still there. Why? Because what I really needed was a new compressor, probably a new car. But this is what we do. In front, amidst all the problems, all our solutions, they feel very inadequate. What do we do as a church? No, first as a church, what do we do? Do we put up a community pantry that we're gonna need money for that, and we're gonna need effort for that, and people can't get out of the house to be able to help out there? Do we go on the streets and march for the rights of the different kinds of people that we perceive as being victimized, no, by a bad culture, by the bad attitudes of people? Do we go online and preach against all the injustice, no, all the corruption, all the gulo of our government? What do we do? Sometimes we're so inundated by all this information that we feel paralyzed. But the question is, they say, what do we do? And sometimes it may cause you to really get weary and just slump down, surrender, and say, what can I do? In this verse, Jesus tells us what the problem is. And it's not all that. The problem is, he sees that people are harassed. They are cast down, and they have no shepherd. It's important that we see. We can hear the cries of the people, and we can say, this is what we should be doing, this is what we should be doing. But let's look at what Jesus is looking at, because there the problem lies. Nobody knows humanity like him. Nobody is more aware than him. So when he feels bad about something, let's look at it. Why? Because that's where the problem really lies. He was already healing the sick. He was already doing miracles on the street. But if the problem was their illness, then he would have been happy already. Why? Because they were getting healed. If the problem was their poverty, he was already feeding the 5,000. He showed that he can do that. But what is really the problem? Why? Because he's still distressed. Because there's something that is really bothering the people. And it is this. This is what he saw. Jesus saw the person. You can look at humanity and see the problems, but it's important that you see the person in front of you. Jesus saw the person in front of him. Jesus saw the people, and at the core of all our distress, at the core of all our inadequacies, in the core of the madness, whether they are victim or perpetrator. Sa Tagalog, whether biktima ka ng kahirapan o ikaw yung nagpapahirap, pareho ang problema niyan. Same problem. The problem of the powerful and the marginalized, the problem of the rich and the poor, the problem of the sick and the healthy are the same. We're all harassed. Doesn't matter today if you live in a big house or if you have no house, we're all harassed by our world. Doesn't matter today if you're working or you do not have a job, the same feelings of harassment are there. Iba't ibang mga bagay lang ang naghaharas sa atin. We may sometimes, alam nyo, want to march to Congress or the Senate or even Malacanang, and we may actually want to say, alam nyo, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is what you do, this is what you do. We can go and chant all we want. But at the heart of everyone is everyone's harassed. Everyone. Even those that are in position, why do they make the decisions that they make? Why do they do what they do? Why do they focus on what they focus? Because in the midst of that, the people in charge are also harassed. Harassed by what? Harassed by our own feelings, no, harassed by our own needs, harassed by our own interest, harassed by this world that we are in. Iba ang mundo ng mahirap at mayaman, pero doon sa mundo nila, everyone's harassed. Why do people do the wrong things, whether in power or whether they are poor? Why do people do the wrong things? Because we feel so harassed. This is what I need. This is what I need. So this is what I will do. And it's maddening sometimes because it's never ending. What did Jesus say? Jesus saw the person and he knew that everyone is harassed. Why do we do the wrong things? Why do we make the wrong decisions? Why do we take the wrong course of action? Why do we neglect our children and our wives? Because we feel like we're so busy doing this. We're trying to survive. We're all harassed. We're all harassed. And Jesus said, they're harassed, they're helpless, and they're without a shepherd. Helpless how? You know what helpless means? Helpless means this, that everyone has a problem they have no capability to solve. People might think they have the capability to solve their problems. We may think we are powerful because we have money and we have influence. But the truth is, the money can buy you things, but it can't get you out of the madness. Because after you buy a solution, if you use your power to solve your problems, that's fine, but another problem is coming. Everybody is just harassed. It's all problems, problems, problems. And at the core of everything, you have no way of getting out of the stress. You have no way of getting out of the cycle of problem, solution, problem, solution. It comes at us every moment, every day. Last night, I was talking to a friend, and she was saying, yung ba minsan pagka may kausap kang tao, habang kinakausap mo, nakikita mo yung problema niya, tas nararamdaman mo yung sarili mo, yung mga reactions mo, may problema ka din. And both of you are just going this way. Alam niyo, and then here we are, we do not have a solution to our problem. Why? Because we will always act on our own interest. We will always be frantic, lagi tayong taranta, and we are prone to make bad decisions. And then Jesus says, we are without a shepherd. No one to lead us. No one to really care for us. There is no one who watches our back completely. There is no one that has plans for us that we can ever be secure in. The promise of your company is only as good as the company's survival. The promise of the government is only as good, no, as their capability to push through with the promise. So we cannot trust anyone. In short, the biggest tragedy of all, nandun na nga siya. Pero hindi nila makita he was right there, but people cannot see. that He is the solution to your weariness, that He is the solution to your capability to, to solve your life. And He is the shepherd who will lead us into better pastures. He's right there. And He cries. His heart is broken. Because even though the solution is right in front of us, we cannot see it. That is the biggest tragedy. Sometimes we expect God to do something and in one shot, everything is fine. That's not the way it goes. He walks with us in our moments of difficulty, and those are always there. That means Jesus is always there. But do we take security? Do we gain security from His being there? Even though Jesus is there. But if you do not learn to rest in Him, if you do not learn to take His promises and lean on it, if you do not care to really get to know Him, the man behind the promise. Kaya nahalata natin eh. You can actually read your Bible, go to church, and go to whatever meeting you want, and it will satisfy you for a moment, but really, there is no lasting, there is no enduring peace. Why? Because many of us are really interested, in what Jesus can do, and we're not interested in Him. But how does that look like? Well, yeah, right. You can read your Bible. You can get somebody to pray for you. And you can hear some great words, look at the slogan, and, feel good for a moment and then lose it. Why? Because security does not come from words. Security does not come from small band-aid patches. Security comes from getting to know the person behind the promise. Security comes from surrendering your future, your life. Surrendering your wants, surrendering your desires, and giving up, not on problems, but giving up to Him and saying, I've tried to do my best, but really it's not working. Can I just surrender this all to you? From now on, I leave my future in your hands. I follow you. Sometimes we feel like, why we cannot say, Lord, I will follow you. Because you feel like what He is doing is not relevant to what you are doing. Ibig sabihin, you feel like, if I follow God, I will leave all these things. Paano naman to? Can I tell you something? Jesus is interested in you. He is interested in your world, in yung mga bagay na pinagkakaabalahan mo. And surrendering to Him, you will find the things that you cannot fix, He will fix. The relationships, alam mo, that you cannot fix, He will fix. But you're going to have to learn to do it His way. Why? Because we are resting in the promise of the person. You cannot rest on the promise of God. You cannot even rest on the word of God if you do not know the person behind the words, the person behind the promise. Ang dali-dali naman magsabi ng, ako nang bahala sa iyo. How many times have we heard that? I'll take care of you. We've heard that from many people who have failed us. And we put our trust in those people and then suddenly they fail. But you're talking about God. When He says He'll take care of you, He'll take care of you. And what happens to us, no? You know why we cannot trust God? Because we feel like He's going to do something in some way in His own timeline and not your own timeline. This is what we surrender to Him. The real problem of our world today is here we are, a bunch of people trying to solve our own problems. Harassed means we have no more strength and we are weary and we are tired. Helpless means Whatever solution you are holding, it is inadequate. And the worst thing is, you are without a shepherd, you are without an orphan. I look all around today and look at people, how they act. We all act like orphans. How does an orphan act? An orphan acts, alam mo, look at how an orphan acts. There's insecurity, there's anger, there is independence, there is, alam mo yung, we're very strong-willed, no problem with doing what's wrong just as long as I take care of myself. Why? Because nobody is taking care of him. When a person is loved, alam nyo, when a person is loved, there is this security, there is this peace about them. Why? Because everything can go wrong, but I am loved. My day may be not so good, but I am loved. I'm trying hard, but I'm not gonna do anything wrong. I don't have to do anything wrong so that my needs may be met. Why? Because I am loved. Somebody's taking care of me. I'm covered. At the end of the day, when I am tired, when I am bruised, when I am disappointed, frustrated, when I am a failure, I am loved. I can go home to that love anytime. And we have the same problems with those that have a shepherd. But at the end of that day, at the end of that moment, the love of God is there for us. Does that mean the love of God is not there for other people who have no peace? No. The biggest tragedy of all is the love of God is here. But how many of us have actually gotten to know the God who promises us that He will take care of us in such an absolute way? We're all trying to solve our problems when actually we really need to see that we are cared for. When you are cared for, you tend to make the right decisions. When you are cared for, you're able to cope with your failures, with your shame. Even the sin, that most dastardly part of us, that is dark, selfish, greedy, disobedient, rebellious. Even that, we can trust God to love us even in those places of our lives, so that there is a peace that comes upon us because we have a shepherd. God is the good shepherd. But you're going to have to surrender your life to Him, because He's not going to go over and take your life. He will walk into your life and solve your problem to make you know that He loves you in spite of all that we have done. But the surrendering is up to you. And that is the biggest tragedy of society, of our world, of every nation, rich and poor. We're all people who are just going about trying to take care of ourselves when somebody has promised to take care of us. And I don't mean that we should just sit down and wait for everything to come. No, that's silly. If you think that's what I'm saying, you don't get it. Trying to tell you, you become the best you when you are loved. That's what Jesus saw. In the midst of the sea of people, He was saying, I'm here, and yet you are lost. And that's not on Him. That's on us. Because we haven't been defeated by His love. We are defeated by life, but we have to be defeated by His love so that we can surrender to Him. Thirdly, Jesus saw people who were ready to be loved. It said, He looked up at His disciples and said, look at the harvest. It's ready. I don't like it. I don't like the labels of the church. Labels that the religious use. Believer, unbeliever, lost, found. Sinner, saint. These are labels that don't matter to Jesus. He looked up at the sea of people. He saw the government and he saw the people, and he loved them both. He submitted. There's injustice. The injustice happened to him. But he never hated the one who nailed him to the cross. Those that drove the nails. He never hated the people who passed the sentence. Crucify him. He never hated the people chanting on the streets. Why? Because he looked at them and said, the problem is not their anger. The problem is nobody loves them. Why are they angry? Because they're suffering. I'm being nailed to the cross and I love them. Why do some people don't care? Because they've never been cared for. Why are people wasting their time doing all these things? It's because there is no shepherd to show them direction. He was a victim of injustice, and yet he loved the unjust, and he also loved the victims. So many things I want to say now. I actually have optional slides. And I'm probably going to just share it with you because my heart is just exploding. I'm wanting to say to the church that professes Christianity, that professes that you love Jesus, I just want to tell you that our world, it's so ready to be loved. You don't have to go on, you don't have to go on seminars, get a diploma. You'll get a diploma on how to do all this Christian stuff, okay? What to understand, what to study, etc., etc. But there is one thing that does not need an education. It's loving people. Something that education cannot solve. It's loving people. How can we love people? Give away the love that God gave you. That covering, that security, that overwhelming sense of peace because your world is messed up. Yet, there is a God who cares for you individually, personally. Still going back to Isaiah 43 verse 1 and 2, He cares for you as His created, as His precious one, as His masterpiece. From there, if you have experienced that in a moment, give it out. Don't wait for the completeness of it to happen. Oh, I can't love you. Why? Because I'm not ready. If you have received the love of God, right now, you're ready now. You're ready now. And if the church can only see, we're ready now because our task is to love this world around us. But before we start getting upset at our world, I'm going to ask you, sa Tagalog maganda to bago mo lapatan ng solusyon yung problema ng lipunan, siguraduhin mo na yung taong nasa harap mo, nilalapatan mo ng solusyon. We get all upset because of the atrocities happening to the people of the Philippines. But we do not see the people in our house. We are not able to touch the couriers that deliver our online shopping things. We are not just and generous to our neighbors. You don't even talk to your wife, your husband. Yung anak mo nga, napapabayaan mo eh. Tapos ma-offend ka sa nangyayari sa bayan. That's not your world. Your world is primarily the people that are in front of you already. That's where it all starts. The world doesn't need to hear what you have to say on Facebook, but your wife does. The world doesn't need to hear your opinions. Alam mo, on social media. But you know who needs your comfort and your love right now? Your son, your daughter, your wife. Because they are harassed, they are helpless, and they are without a shepherd. But you're right there. Pwede mong ipatikim sa kanila yung pagmamahal ni Lord. And you're thinking they're not ready. They're not ready to receive the Lord. That's what I want to tell the church. You feel like everybody's not ready. The only one that's not ready is you. The world is ready to be loved. Your neighbor, everyone. But here are just some thoughts I have. I put it under optional slides. Because it may be a little, off tangent what we're talking about, but nevertheless, I feel it's important to be said. Then I will close with these three things. One, people are desperately waiting to be loved. But we are sometimes too busy feeling bad about our world. I feel bad about this. I feel bad about that. I'm bothered about this. I'm bothered about that. And because we're so busy feeling bad, the people right in front of us do not receive our concern, our care. There's a story. Some seminary students studying on how to do the church work, how to do the ministry. Their university made an experiment na they had to prepare a teaching about the Good Samaritan. And this is about caring for the needs of hurting people, okay? They had to prepare a preaching on the Good Samaritan. But they had to get out of their dorms and walk over to a building and give their speech, their talk. And on the way, the university hired an actor. On the way from the dorm to that building, there was an actor there who was acting. And what the actor would do when the student was coming near, the actor would fall down on the ground and groan and pretend to be sick, gravely sick. So this happened. Seminary students, and they were studying on how to do the ministry and and they were going to give a preaching on loving people. So anyway, the students came one by one. And when the student was near, the actor would slump down, groan, and sometimes even cry out, whimper. And you know what? The survey showed 60% of the students did not even mind the actor. 60%. And there were even those that walked over the actor. Sa Tagalog, hinakbangan yung actor. Because we are so busy studying how to love, we cannot love. We are so busy doing our own thing, so that what we really need to do. I put a fan in my car. The problem was the compressor, and it did not solve the problem. We do all these things. We're so busy, writing stuff in social media, and we think it will solve the problems of the world. Problem of the world is solved in your house, in your world, three kinds of people: your family, your friends, and your acquaintances. These are the three people that we need to focus on. And if all of us do it, our people will discover that there is a shepherd and he is trustworthy. And you have the information, and that's what the world needs. And you introduce Jesus by loving others. We are desperately waiting to be loved. We are desperately waiting to be loved, but we sometimes are too busy feeling bad about our world. People are desperately waiting to be loved, but we are sometimes too busy feeling bad about our world. Secondly, Jesus never got angry at government leaders. It is the religious leaders that irritated him and received his sharpest rebuke because it was they who had the solution but did not bother to give it away. Something to think about. He rebuked the religious leaders and said, "You brood of vipers." He didn't say that to government leaders. He didn't say that to civic leaders. He didn't even say that to the vilest of sinners, the murderers. No. He said that to religious leaders. We have the solution and we don't give it away. He was saying, you see all this? They are harassed because they do not know what you should have known. They do not know that there is a God who loves them. They are helpless. By the way, you know what helpless means? Helpless means this. The reference is, you know how sheep are? The sheep pala, because they have so much wool, if sometimes they fall down and end up on their back, legs up, they will not be able to stand. They will die there. They need a shepherd. They need someone to come over, turn them over, help them stand. God is ready to do that. God is doing that right now, but we would not take His help. Why? Because we don't know that God is helping. Why? Because those who know aren't telling us and showing us. Tragic. Thirdly, please do not be kind for kindness' sake. Because I see many Christians doing kind things. But it's still inadequate. It's still kulang. Why? Because we may be helping them with food or emotionally, but we're really not introducing Jesus to them. I'll read this. Do not be kind for kindness' sake. Make sure that your intent is to introduce Jesus to your world. Let your kindness be a preview of the love of God. I see a lot of kind people, and it's not bad. But if you're going to be kind, have the intent, the commitment, and the love to follow that through so that the person gets to know the shepherd that can truly take care of not only them but all of us. Your family, your friends, and your acquaintances. If you notice, this has become all my messages because the world needs it. And it's tragic if all we do is church, and yet we do not love the world around us. You might feel like you have to take up a cause and fight for a cause. Here's the problem. When we fight for victims, we sometimes were angry at the victimizers. That's not how Jesus did it. He loved everybody. So what do?
we love the person that God brings to us. What's wrong with our world? Our world is harassed, helpless, and it is without a shepherd. That's why everything you see, that's the result. And fourthly, those who have the solution do not give it away. That is something that all of us that are listening here can do. I'm going to tell you this. Find people who want to do this. Talk. So that we can help each other love one another. We need help to love one another. And if you can find yourself a group that really wants to do this, then let's do it. This reaching our world thing, all I have heard are excuses. And it's tragic when we have the power to touch our world so that Jesus can change our world. It's in your hands. That's up to you. You don't have to know a lot. You just have to give what you have. God bless you, everyone. I hope you have a blessed Sunday. And remember this, we have a lot of problems. But God has empowered you with His love right now to touch that world, not tomorrow, right now. The people that maybe you're on your way to some place. Make sure you love them. Make sure that in your heart is the same as the heart of Jesus. That your desire is that they may know that there is a shepherd who wants to lead them to greener pastures. God bless you. You take care, everyone, and be safe. We'll see you next week.